Hello and welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Amanda Bowen. As we did yesterday, we've got quite a lot of weather going on today, so we'll go ahead and get right into our hazardous weather. For this graphic, we're focusing on the Panhandle, where we have a very strong low pressure system coming in, bringing high winds as well as heavy rain. So we have a high wind warning in effect for all of the red areas, which is really most of the Panhandle. That is in effect through tonight, so through Friday night. We're looking at wind gusts up to 70 to 75 miles per hour. Those strongest gusts are going to be right along the coast, and inland areas are still going to see very strong winds, but maybe closer to about gusts to 60 miles per hour. We also have a flood watch in effect for the northern portions of the Panhandle. That's going to be through the day on Saturday. Heavy rain of 3 to 5 inches over that 24 to 36 hour period is going to be bringing the potential for small streams and rivers to rise rapidly, as well as some minor and localized flooding. Finally, we have a flash flood watch in effect through Saturday morning for the Sitka and Port Alexander areas. The soil conditions before this storm are very similar to what they were last October when there were landslides in the Sitka area. And so that, combined with the incoming heavy rain and high wind, will increase the likelihood of landslides in the Sitka and Port Alexander areas. As we look at the mainland portion of the state, we have winter storm warnings in effect, as well as winter weather advisories. So we have a winter storm warning for the northeastern Brooks Range, as well as the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coasts. That's in effect from Friday afternoon through Saturday. And that's going to be for heavy snow, as well as reduced visibility with that heavy snow. So travel is going to be very difficult in the area. If you're planning on traveling on the Dalton Highway, driving is going to be difficult, but really any form of travel in the area is going to be difficult due to that accumulating snow, as well as reduced visibility. The other winter storm warning is in effect for the eastern interior, the Delta Junction area, as well as the eastern Alaska range. So similar story there, looking at heavy snow and reduced visibility, creating very difficult travel conditions to nearly impossible at some points due to the snow being so heavy, accumulating so fast, and reduced visibilities down to near zero. The yellow areas are our winter weather advisories. Those are in effect for the areas of the Yukon Flats down through Fairbanks and Tanana and into the Denali area. So that is in effect through Sunday morning, actually, so almost 48 hours with that in effect. And that is looking at longer duration, but lighter snow. So not heavy snow, but still longer duration accumulating snow, which could make traveling difficult, especially along the Parks Highway and the other highways in the area. Looking at our satellite imagery, we can clearly see, especially in the last few frames, our very strong hurricane force low in the eastern Gulf that's going to be approaching the Panhandle. It's wrapping up into what we call that comma head shape, which is very indicative of a strong, mature low in the mid-latitudes. Looking at our our surface chart, we can see that that low is going to get down to about 960 millibars today, which is incredibly strong, especially for this area of the Gulf. And so as that comes inland, it's going to be bringing those high winds and heavy rain. We're also looking at snow showers and snow across much of the mainland, and some rain showers for the Alaska Peninsula and Eastern Bering. For tonight, we have that very strong low pressure system weakening some, but still maintaining its strength at about 977 millibars coming inland across the northern Panhandle. Of note, there is a slight chance of thunderstorms for tonight across the southern panhandle associated with that low pressure system. So wind, heavy rain, as well as a chance of thunderstorms. Across the mainland, continuing snow showers and snow with the addition of some stronger winds for the west coast, especially Seward Peninsula area, with some blowing snow possible in those areas. On Saturday, that low that was in the Gulf came across the northern panhandle, keeps moving into western Canada and weakening. So a little bit of a break for the panhandle with rain and snow turning to showers and winds starting to die down. We will continue to see some blowing snow across the west coast, as well as snow in those areas with the winter weather and advisories and winter storm warnings. And finally, on Sunday, things starting to dry out a little bit across much of the mainland. Some snow showers still in the forecast, but high pressure developing over the west coast. And for the panhandle, looking at rain and snow showers. We do see another strong low coming off the Kamchatka Peninsula, but at this point on Sunday, it won't be affecting Alaska quite yet. Taking a look at our temperatures. For the panhandle on Saturday morning, we're looking at temperatures just in the 40s with all that rain and wind. Temperatures just aren't going to drop very much for Saturday morning. Temperatures dropping a bit more for South Central and the Alaska Peninsula, down to about freezing into the mid-20s. For Saturday afternoon, again, not much warming for the panhandle either, with so much rain and wind, so temperatures still in the 40s for highs, lower 40s for South Central and the Kenai Peninsula, and upper 30s for much of the Alaska Peninsula. For Sunday morning, finally we get some cooling for the panhandle, temperatures down into the 30s behind that system, and temperatures around or just below freezing for much of South Central and the Kenai Peninsula. And finally, Sunday afternoon, we're looking at 40s again for the panhandle, with a little bit warmer for the Alaska Peninsula and South Central areas, also in the low to mid 40s. Looking at the northern half of the state for Saturday morning, we got temperatures generally in the 20s, except our cold spots such as AKwx with low of 13 Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon, temperatures generally in the mid to upper 30s across the west coast and interior, with temperatures around freezing for the north slope. Sunday morning, pretty similar to Saturday morning, temperatures in the 20s across the board, except for those high spots in the Brooks Range. And Sunday afternoon, once again, temperatures in the mid to upper 30s, with the exception of the north slope, where we're looking at temperatures right around 30 for Sunday afternoon. And for Southwest on Saturday morning, we're looking at temperatures in the upper 20s to around 30 degrees, a couple of warm spots there, such as 33 at AKwx, and temperatures approaching 40 in the Aleutians. For Saturday afternoon, not a whole lot of warming, with temperatures just getting up into the upper 30s, but approaching 50 in the Aleutians. Sunday morning, pretty similar, upper 20s, low 30s for lows, except not nearly so much cooling in the Aleutians as usual. And Sunday afternoon, temperatures around 40. And now we have an update from our National Weather Service Weather Forecast Office in Juneau.
Hello everyone, I'm meteorologist Cody Moore with the National Weather Service in Juneau, here with an update on the hurricane force low impacting southeast Alaska tonight. Here I have a current satellite image of the storm system. Right now it's moving into the Gulf. We have hurricane force winds in the North Pacific. This will weaken slightly to storm force low as it moves into the Gulf. However, hurricane force gusts will be possible in the Gulf and possibly southern inner channels. Let's go to the actual details here in the briefing that we have set up. This is updated as of noon on Friday. Here's the overview. Here's another satellite image of that storm system coming in. Main impacts are high winds, heavy rain, flooding, and very high seas. Next 36 hours, we're going to see another 1 to 3 inches across the panhandle of rainfall, highest amounts along the outer coast, and then through the icy strait corridor, including Juneau and Sitka and Gustavus. Flood products are out. Flash flood watch for the Sitka area for the potential for landslides. Flood watch out for Juneau, Hoonah, and Gustavus for the possibility of river rises. High wind warnings are in effect across the entire panhandle for wind gusts of up to 75 miles per hour. mainly Friday night into early Saturday morning. Peak land winds. Sitka is expected to get the strongest winds out of this with wind gusts up to 75, wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour, possible Ketchikan, Prince of Wales, Juneau, and through the icy strait corridor. Peak marine winds. We're expecting storm force winds along the outer coast in the far southern interchannel, southern Clarence Strait, southern Chatham, and Stevens Passage. Seas are going to be a big one with this. Seas up to 35 feet along the outer coast, and then within the interchannel, seas 7 to 10 feet. So this is a pretty dangerous storm system with very dangerous seas out there. So if you have any marine interests, keep an eye on this. That is it for the briefing. Keep checking back at weather.gov/Juneau for more updates.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Onto a look at your aviation forecast, starting with flying weather for Saturday morning. We have IFR conditions across the entirety of the Panhandle, still associated with that passing strong low pressure system. Also IFR conditions through the Alaska Range, up into the interior and across the Brooks Range, as well as the North Slope areas, and IFR conditions along some of the immediate coastal areas of the West Coast. Saturday afternoon, we still have some IFR conditions along the North Slope, as well as IFR in the Alaska Range, down through the Wrangell-St. Elias Mountains and throughout the Panhandle. We're also looking at a chance for some thunderstorms on Saturday afternoon in the central Panhandle. As we head into Sunday morning, that chance for thunderstorms is going to shift south into the southern Panhandle, but in general, conditions in the Panhandle are improving by Sunday morning to MVFR conditions. We do still have some IFR conditions Sunday morning along the North Slope, as well as the eastern interior, and some developing in the central Bering, also near St. Matthew Island. For Sunday afternoon, general improvement across the area, still MVFR basically through the entire Bering, as well as the North Slope, with some IFR remaining along the North Slope right on the northern side of the Brooks Range. A few pockets of IFR over the Wrangell-St. Elias Mountains and the north side of the Alaska Range, as well as the higher terrain in the Panhandle. Pass conditions on Saturday, and AKwx Pass as well as Adigan Pass, both looking at IFR all day on Saturday. Lake Clark and Merrill Passes both MVFR on Saturday. Rainy Pass also MVFR, but in the afternoon we'll be seeing some IFR development near the west entrance to Rainy Pass. IFR conditions through the day at Windy Pass as well as Isabel Pass. Mentasta Pass also IFR on Saturday. Tanita Pass MVFR though, and as we head down to Portage Pass, we'll actually see VFR conditions on Saturday. Chilkoot and White Passes both expected to be IFR in that higher terrain in the Panhandle on Saturday. Freezing levels for Saturday morning, we've got our surface freezing level hugging the southwest coast, coming across the Alaska Peninsula and across the Gulf Coast into the central Panhandle. 2,000 foot freezing levels stretching across the central Bering, down into the eastern Aleutians, and then coming up into Prince William Sound and across the northern Panhandle. We do have increasing freezing levels as we head south, or as we head west into the Aleutians, as well as south into the Panhandle. For icing on Saturday, pretty widespread isolated moderate icing. For the Panhandle, that's going to be above about 8,000 feet. For South Central, that's going to be above about 5,000 feet. For much of the rest of the mainland, isolated moderate icing on Saturday above 2,000 feet. And then for the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutians areas, isolated moderate icing on Saturday between about 3,000 and 8,000 feet. Looking at our jet stream for Saturday, we have still a strong jet, not quite as strong as we'll see on Friday, but still a strong jet peaking at about 140 knots out of the west and southwest. It's shifting a little bit south on Saturday, so just south of the Panhandle coming into British Columbia is where that will be centered. We also have a secondary jet streak coming from north to south or northwest to a little bit southeast through the Bering, peaking at about 110 knots and coming into the eastern Aleutians. At 9,000 feet, we have low pressure centered near the Prince William Sound with flow going counterclockwise around that. Our strongest winds will be in the Gulf of Alaska out of the west to northwest at about 50 to 55 knots. At 3,000 feet, we have a low basically in the same area, right over Prince William Sound. And again, we have our strongest winds, as usual, to the south of that low, 40 to 45 knots across the Gulf, possibly peaking around 55 knots between the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island. For turbulence on Saturday, again, quite a lot of considerable moderate turbulence. For the Panhandle, that's going to be below about 6,000 feet. Also for much of the Alaska range, considerable moderate turbulence below 6,000 feet. For the much of the Southwest, including Bristol Bay and the westernmost Alaska range, stretching down across the Alaska Peninsula and into the eastern Aleutians, we're looking at considerable moderate turbulence below 4,000 feet. And then below 5,000 feet, considerable moderate turbulence for much of the Brooks Range, and below 3,000 feet, considerable moderate turbulence for St. Lawrence Island as well as Seward Peninsula.
So my heart is definitely racing. I don't know about anyone else's. This is the stuff nerds dream of.
10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6,
It's gonna
5,
happen.
4, 3, 2.
That countdown you just heard? We'll get back to that in a minute. Last episode, we saw the epic launch of ICESat-2, NASA's newest state-of-the-art ice-observing satellite. But now that that's in orbit, the pressure to deliver results is on.
Between launch and, the first ground returns, took 17, 18 days or something like this. It's a time when you're quite nervous.
9 years ago, Dr. Torsten Marcus took over as the lead project scientist for ICESat-2 during a time when the mission needed a champion.
You start fighting for a mission over, for 9 years now.
So when ICESat-2 was turned on for the first time 18 days after it was launched, only then would the science team know if the whole thing had worked. And it did.
First of all, it's kind of emotional, right? Being here, ICESat-2 was developing for 9-10 years. Project scientist, you live the mission, right?
If it sounds like there's a lot of noise in the background, that's because Torsten is being interviewed from a plane 1,500 feet in the air. IceBridge was tasked with the job of bridging the data between the end of ICESat's mission and the beginning of ICESat-2, about a 9-year difference.
The goal is that it would run until ICESat-2 launched and then would have overlap with ICESat-2 as well, so we can get a really long, well-calibrated time series from IceBridge.
As the deputy project scientist for Operation IceBridge, Brick works closely with Torsten to make sure the two missions are syncing up.
The timing was everything during that mission, which was a real challenge because not only do we need to...
Basically what you need to take away is getting an airplane and a satellite in space to fly over the same flight path at the same time and collect matching data is really, really hard. IceBridge was tasked with two objectives. Check the accuracy of ICESat-2's data over land ice and over sea ice. They were able to lock in the land ice data fairly quickly in the mission, but the sea ice data...
It was really tricky. We waited day after day. Do we fly the sea ice? It's still on our list.
7, 6,
It's gonna
5,
happen.
4, 3, 2, 1. Mark on the overpass 0435, 350.
Here's what just happened. A plane 1,500 feet up and a satellite 308 miles up measured the same sea ice at the same time. This moment finally linked veteran mission Operation IceBridge's data to that of its new sister mission, ICESat-2, two projects that, until now, were separate for nearly 10 years.
It's a very satisfying feeling because you do something that is meaningful and in the bigger picture, and yeah, it's very satisfying.
Our search for knowledge doesn't end here. Grace Follow-On and ICESat-2, the two satellite missions that launched this year, will continue to bring in incredible data for the foreseeable future. The steady drumbeat of campaigns in the field goes on, but most of all, the people who look for answers will never stop searching. And from our perspective, it's pretty clear why.
What is your favorite planet in the solar system? My favorite planet is the planet Earth.
What? Earth? Really?
The Earth, obviously.
Favorite planet in the solar system? Earth, right? We live on it. It's a really important one.
Favorite planet is Earth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Why?
when you look out at the other planets, they're absolutely fascinating. They've got all sorts of interesting systems going on. They've got dust storms. But then when you're on another planet, looking back at Earth, I mean, it's just incredible.
Whenever you go in different places, it looks so different, so amazing. It's just, I love the planet Earth. It's just a very special planet. This is our home.
We've seen things far beyond the solar system. But even with all that, even the amazing things we've seen, one of the most amazing is the Earth itself.
It's got to be Earth. It's got to be Earth.
It's got to be here. I like the polar regions up here of Earth. Yeah, sorry. It's very boring.
Earth is good.
Earth is good.
We live here, it sustains our life.
I'm not going to turn my back on it.
It's got water, it's got ice, it's got vegetation. I mean, it's rich with life. And so studying Earth is a very, very rewarding career. And I think if we were on any other planet, we would be trying to get to Earth as quickly as we could.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
And we're back for a look at your marine forecast, starting with the sea ice edge. Today is a special day for sea ice. It is the sea ice birthday, which means that all of the ice that has survived the summer is now considered multi-year ice. So almost all of the ice that you see on here up in the Arctic, in the Beaufort and the Chukchi, is now considered multi-year ice. And that means that most of the ice is made of fresh water instead of salt water, as the salt seeps out over time. We haven't seen a lot of changes in the last 24 hours in the sea ice edge itself, but we do continue to see some development right along the immediate coastline from Point Lay up and around the North Slope in those protected areas, and that's expected to continue over the next couple of days with northerly flow in place. Looking at our marine forecast for southeast, we've got that hurricane force low making landfall tonight into tomorrow. So we have strong winds in the area and particularly high seas with that long duration wind event. So over the eastern Gulf, we're looking at seas 25 to about as high as 35 feet with strong gale force winds, gales even across the inside channels up to 40 knots with gusts up to 55 knots in those central inside waters. Heading into Sunday, we'll have a lot less intense weather as far as the Marines are concerned. Winds down to 15 to 25 knots across the Gulf and 10 to 20 knots for those inside waterways. Seas coming down slowly to about 10 to 15 feet. Saturday across South Central, we're looking at very strong offshore flow near the Barren Islands with about 55 knots out of the northwest on the west side of the Barrens and 45 knots on the east side of the Barrens. So incredibly strong storm force winds in that gap between the Kenai Peninsula and the Kodiak Island on Saturday. Heading into Sunday, that offshore flow decreases a little bit. So we've got about 30 knots of wind near the Barren Islands, 10 to 15 knots across the rest of the northern Gulf, with seas anywhere from about 7 to 9 feet in the Gulf waters. For Saturday across the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island areas, again, very strong offshore flow. So we're looking at 40 to 45 knots of wind out of the northwest around Kodiak Island, 50 knots out of the northwest for Shelikof Strait with gusts as high as 60 knots. So very strong winds all around Kodiak Island. In Bristol Bay, we've got winds still gale force there, 35 knots out of the northwest. For Sunday, all those winds are going to come down some. We've still got some gales in there, but mostly small craft winds out of the northwest and west. Seas also coming down a little bit to about 6 to 10 feet. For the Aleutian chain on Saturday, we have winds out of the west and northwest, at least for the central and eastern Aleutians, about 15 to 25 knots. Southerly flow, though, across the western Aleutians, fairly light, 15 to 20 knots. But a significant change as we head into Sunday, with winds increasing out of the south and southwest, as high as 45 knots for the western Aleutians west of Kiska. That's going to be winds out of the southwest. We've also got our highest seas out there as high as about 25 feet. So definitely another strong system coming in on Sunday for the Aleutians. Saturday across the west coast, we've got winds 20 to 30 knots generally out of the north and northwest. And as we head into Sunday, we've got those coming down just a little bit, especially in the northern Bering to about 15 knots, but increasing down near the Pribilofs out of the southwest to about 35 knots, again out ahead of that next system. On Saturday for the Arctic coast, we've got 20 to 25 knots out of the northeast for the North Slope and 20 to 30 knots out of the north for the Chukchi Sea, with that 30 knots just on the south side of the Bering Strait. And into Sunday, winds coming down here, 15 knots across the North Slope and just 10 to 15 knots for the Chukchi Sea and Bering Strait. To recap what we're looking at for Saturday, our very strong hurricane force low will have made landfall and moved inland into western Canada by Saturday. So we'll see decreasing winds and rain and snow turning to showers for the Panhandle, finally getting somewhat of a break after that very intense system coming through today. Across the interior, especially the eastern interior and North Slope, we'll see continuing light snow, some heavy snow, with a reminder that we do have winter storm warnings in effect through Saturday for the North Slope as well as the eastern interior, and some blowing snow for the west coast. Thanks so much for watching Alaska TV Weather.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.